All right, so that's directing the writer. The next hint we have is called shaping the path. I think this one's a little bit harder, so I squeezed it in the middle, but I think if we're smart, there's ways we can do this, and Kathy's going to show you some too. So with shaping the path, we want to make change easy and we want to remove obstacles. And we know school systems inherently, this is why I think change is so hard. Inherently, there's obstacles, there's rules, there's various rules even between schools. There's just, things are turned on, things are turned off. There's lots of things that can become obstacles to making things happen with AT. The three kind of sub bullet points are called tweaking the environment, building habits, and rallying the herd. And I think I'm starting with actually building habits. Habits are really interesting because part of what we're trying to do is introduce new behaviors. So like Kathy talked about the student who she gave the burden of proof that when you write with this technology, you can write like an eighth grader, but now we have to keep reminding it. We have to build those habits. So we did this way back at Don Johnson. One of our products was called Co-Writer, which is a writing tool. And we always tell people, if you can think it, you can write it. And we thought about like, what is a habit? How do we get people using Co-Writer? And we thought like, how many times does a teacher say the word right in a school day? And I would say like across almost every subject area, social studies, science, like the teachers are saying the word right. So what we were trying to do is build the habit with teachers to say, when I say the word right, remind them that they can use Co-Writer or other writing tools. It didn't have to name a specific tool, but we just really wanted to build that habit in the most simple way. So like that's not asking teachers to do a lot of work. It's just like anytime you say the word right, can you please remind the students to use this tool? The other part about that, and what I love with some of these tipping points is if you just take something simple and then you make it bigger and keep working with it, is how are we going to rally the crowd, the rally the herd? And so we provide these little posters. They're just 8.5 by 11s. But I remember in Tomball, Texas, they made like poster size of these and they put them around everywhere. They put them in halls and in buildings and they gave them to the principals. And again, it was just a way to have that visual reminder on top of just a word reminder. And so again, they were able to, and again, talking about data, and in those days, Co-Writer would measure usage, and they were able to show that the usage of Co-Writer were going up in the buildings where they had put up these posters and they had taught people this habit. So something as simple as a poster and a word and just extending that word. So that's building habits and rallying the herd. Another example is called tweaking the environment. These are always hard, and I'm going to take us out of education because we're not the only ones doing hard change on things that just should happen. Like sometimes you're like, why is this so hard? So I'm going to talk about retirement savings for a minute because you would think everyone would want to retire, like that's a happy time of your life, and you want to retire with money. And so we know people believe in retirement. They believe that they know they need to save for retirement, yet it wasn't happening. And Robert Thaler figured out, he won a Nobel Prize for this. He figured out that instead of now, when you go to get employed, you're automatically enrolled into your 401k. And so in the old way, when you were signing up and doing all your paperwork, it says, do you want to be involved in the 401k? And then you'd have to make a decision. He found that opting out was better than opting in. And even the other two things he figured out, like this is where it keeps, like if you understand this concept, it can keep going. So he got enrollment to go up. And then, when we get raises, like a lot of people again forgot to like increase because they have more money, they should be saving more money. So he made it that every time you get a raise, you automatically invest more. And then a lot of people forgot to put their money into investments. And so now it's automatically invested and you opt out of all these things. So to me, what this means is we all need to rally Google, Microsoft, Apple, who have built-in tools, but you have to still opt in to use them. And we need to push them really hard that we would rather have them on and let people opt out. So that's an example. Here's another example, and I'm going to And there's a gazillion chatbots out there. And can you guys see my screen, Kathy? And
Yes. Yep.
okay, so you're seeing my chatbot. So we all know, we all believe in assistive technology. I would assume most of the people who are here believe in that. We also believe in like things like universal design for learning. So this is a chat bot where, like if I go to Chat GPT and I asked it to create a lesson plan for third grader on fractions, it says nothing about AT, it says nothing about UDL, it says nothing about AIM. This is a chat bot called Elle. It was created by an AT person, and she had a lot of good stuff in there, but I'm like, Tiffany, you need to make sure that without even prompting, that it brought up UDL stuff. So now if you use her chatbot, I did the same prompt, create a lesson on fractions for a third grader. You can see, look at that, UDL strategies, accommodations modification, assistive technology. We are the ones who would remember to put in that prompt, but the average teacher is not going to remember it. So if you push them towards chatbots like this, the other thing I would say about this chat bot is it's all based on like a lot of things that have been vetted by OSEP. So it's got a lot of it's pulling its information from the Iris Center and very evidence-based center. So that is another way to tweak the environment and just make it so easy. So all you're going to do is tell people to use this chat bot versus another one. And she does little QR codes. So that's another example of tweaking the environment. And then Kathy, how did you tweak the environment?
Into IT. I know that sounds really strange, but I was a special educator, of course, and but I moved into the IT department. So I was around all of those people who are fixing our computers. And it was great because I could hear their frustrations because they're like, that, they were computers were being dropped or kids were getting into things that they shouldn't. But then I was like, but I needed to be able to do, the accessibility options or things like that. And they're like, But what I needed to do is I needed to show them the reason why. The reason why was the most important part of that. Because they were like, well, they're just going to screw things up. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. Tell me how. So I needed to get into that department so that they could understand what I needed, but I also needed to understand why they wanted to block it. So how can we then work together? Well, my big tipping point is they needed to see themselves as part of the team. They only saw themselves as somebody who fixed something. They didn't see themselves as educators. And I'm like, but you are. I said, without your help, I can't do what I need to do, and that student can't learn. So if we all work together to figure out what this was, then we'll be able to help everybody out and get all the right tools in the hands of kids. And there were times that kids would do things, and I'm like, and they're like, I have no idea what they did. And I'm like, ask the student. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, sit down and ask them how they did it. Because then they helped us figure out how to put the firewalls up, or how to do things that we were like, wow, we don't want you into that. How do we stop you? But it has to go both ways. It has to go, the door has to swing both those directions. So get yourself into those departments and listen and talk and tell them about students. We're not breaching confidentiality, but if you have 20 students on your caseload that really need voice to text, I need a really good microphone on that computer. So when we're looking at things, we've got to make sure that we do that. I need to be able to change the background and foreground colors because I don't have time to keep running around, to work with students who just need a color overlay. I want all kids to know that they're able to do that. Or, Fred broke his arm, or I had a student who broke both his forearms and he was an AP English student. It's like, oh, how is he going to do this? How is he going to write? And I said, I need voice to text on for every kid, so that they can all be doing it, so that they all keep up because I don't have time to see 10,000 kids. So, by sharing all of those little things and they listened and they realized that these are not malicious little kids, these are kids that really want to learn, but we can learn from both sides. They were like, oh, now I kind of get it. And it really did work. It worked really, really well.
And I would say, how many of you, let me ask, how many of you have moved in with IT? I can tell you that I know when I would work with districts, like I knew that districts would be more successful when AT and IT were together. And even, there's something about physically being in the same room because you just hear some of those subtle little conversations. But I also remember walking into school where, I was going to do a training on co-writer and I was walking with the IT and they were telling me how they were using it and how their training was going. And I'm like, yes. So they were actually had found other uses outside of special ed, which we all know. And they were telling me the stories about how successful co-writer had been. And I'm like, this district is going to be successful because I think when you move in together, we always say special ed students are our general ed students first. So why wouldn't we be part of the IT department? Um, so this is reflection time. So remember, shaping the path. You want to tweak the environment or build a habit or rally the herd. You don't have to do all of them. Figure out one of these things. If you figure out building the habit, then we can figure out how to do the other parts of that, So this is your reflection time. What's one thing that you could do and put it in the chat box? Or I definitely want you to write it down on your paper too. So if you use paper anymore, but share with with all of us, please. I love that. Increasing paraprofessional support. These are great. Relationship building. Been amazing. Because I think with Kathy, I love this comment about relationship building because moving in, that's the physical part. That says we are all one, but
Right.
that relationship will make a big difference. So I love that. I'm working with OTs and SLPs. I think tech is going to be your one to probably help you tweak the environment the most. They make things as available as possible. Like I think some of the mistakes we made early on is we bought our own computers for special ed and for AT.
Yep.
And that was like, we thought we were doing the right thing. It was probably the biggest mistake because it always made us separate and always said like our students aren't worthy of everything else. And we took all the hand-me-downs, right? And we need to stop doing that. And if you find yourself in a place where you're taking hand-me-downs for our students, they're not second-class citizens. They're just as important. And actually, we know they should probably be the first students to have some of this technology, not the last. So, Brenda, thank you for adding that. Meet with tech to discuss the repeat issues. Exactly. And if we really want to tweak the environment and have some of these built-in technologies available to all, IT is going to have a better chance of turning that on. So keep that in mind as well. Thanks you guys for sharing. This makes it even richer for all of you. So